Okay, so let's talk about Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. And right off the bat, I want to say this isn't just some dusty old book. It's more like a psychological thriller, a journey that peels back that thin, shiny layer we call civilization to ask a really uncomfortable question about what's actually hiding underneath.
And that's the question, isn't it? Is the darkness we're all so afraid of some faraway place on a map? You know, something out there in the jungle? Or is it something we carry around inside of us, just waiting for the lights to go out and the rules to disappear?
You know, what's so clever about this book is how it's told. It doesn't actually start in the Congo at all. Nope, it kicks off on a nice, calm boat on the River Thames, right in the heart of London. It's a story inside another story. Our main guy, Marlowe, is just sitting there, ready to tell his friends this absolutely harrowing tale from the comfort of so-called civilization.
And this really gets to the heart of Conrad's whole point. You've got the Thames, all peaceful and orderly, that's civilization, and then you've got the Congo, which stands in for everything wild, unknown, and primal. By starting the story in London, Conrad's basically saying, hey, don't get too comfortable. He's suggesting that the darkness of the Congo isn't as far away as you might think. It's a potential that exists everywhere, even on these calm, civilized waters.
So why are all these Europeans in the Congo in the first place? Well, the official story is that it's a civilizing mission. They're there to bring light and progress to the natives. But Marlowe finds out almost immediately that there's a massive, massive gap between that noble idea and the brutal reality, which is all about one thing, and one thing only: ivory.
Marlowe even calls the company's main office in Brussels a whited sepulcher. Now that's a biblical term for something that looks pure and beautiful on the outside, but inside it's full of death and rot. And that is the perfect image for this whole enterprise, right? Brussels looks all enlightened and sophisticated, but all that wealth is being built on the absolute horror happening in the Congo. It's a beautiful mask hiding something truly ugly.
And before Marlowe even sets foot in Africa, the warning signs are everywhere. There are these two women in the office, just knitting black wool. It's so creepy. They're like the fates from Greek myth, literally knitting the dark destiny of anyone who walks through that door. And then you have this painting, made by Kurtz himself, of a blindfolded woman carrying a torch. I mean, come on. It perfectly symbolizes the whole mission, pretending to bring light while being completely blind to its own brutal hypocrisy. So as Marlowe finally heads up the Congo River, the physical trip starts to feel more and more like a journey into the mind. The deeper he goes into the jungle, it feels like he's going backwards in time, into this primal state where all the rules and comforts of his world just melt away into the jungle. The whole trip is just one problem after another. His steamer is sunk, there's this thick, blinding fog, he can't even find rivets to fix the boat. But these aren't just random setbacks, they're symbols. They represent the deep moral rot of the whole operation. It's not just bad luck, it's like the entire system is designed to decay. Every broken part of the machine reflects the broken morality of the men running it. And this is where things get completely flipped on their head. The civilized Europeans on the boat, they're greedy, they're paranoid, they fire their guns into the bushes for no reason. They're totally useless. Meanwhile, the African crewmen, who the Europeans call savages and cannibals, they show this incredible restraint and dignity, even when they're starving. It just forces you to ask, who are the real savages here? And that leads to this huge realization. The jungle doesn't make people evil, it just removes the things that keep our darker impulses in check. The police, your neighbors, social media, all the things that make us behave. Conrad's basically saying that our civilization is just a really fragile mask, and when you're out in the middle of nowhere with no one watching, that mask can slip right off.
And at the very end of that river, at the very heart of the darkness, that's where Marlowe finds him, Mr. Kurtz, the man who's become a legend, a genius, a man who was supposed to bring light, but who has become a living, breathing warning of what happens when a man has no limits.
Kurtz is just this massive contradiction. He was supposed to be the best of them, a brilliant speaker, a painter, an idealist. But you give a man like that absolute power and zero accountability, and what happens? He becomes a monster, a petty god in his own little kingdom. Kurtz proves that the potential for incredible good and for absolute evil can live inside the exact same person.
And in the end, these are his last words. Just a whisper, but it says everything about what he saw out there, what he did, and what he became.
But here's the thing. Marlowe calls this a moral victory. A victory? Why? Well, because in that final moment, Kurtz finally sees the truth. He looks right into the abyss, into his own soul and the soul of the empire, and he doesn't blink. He judges it. He calls it what it is, a horror. It's this one terrifying moment of honesty that almost no one else in the book is brave enough to face.
But the story doesn't end there. The final test for Marlowe comes when he gets back to Europe, back to that whited sepulchre. He now has this terrible knowledge inside him, and he has to face a world that is desperate not to know the truth. So he meets Kurtz's fiancée, and she's living in this beautiful, clean world. And she asks him, what were his last words? And Marlowe just can't bring himself to tell her the truth. He can't tell her the horror. So instead, he lies. He tells her the last word he spoke was her name. He protects her from the awful truth, because he believes that the truth is just too dark for the civilized world to handle. And that lie just leaves us with this really chilling question. Is our own world, our stability, our comfort, is it all built on these kinds of beautiful illusions? Does our society depend on us all agreeing not to look too closely at the darkness that might be holding the whole thing up?
And that is the final haunting idea of Heart of Darkness. The trip from London to the Congo and back again proves one thing. The darkness was never just a place. It's a potential in all of us. And all of our rules, our morals, our civilization, it's really just a thin, fragile sheet of ice over a very deep, very dark ocean.